All right, everybody, welcome to Out of This World podcast. And I am your host, Matthew J. Haas. And I am so excited to have this awesome guest tonight on Out of This World, the premiere episode of Out of This World podcast. And we are excited to have this guest. We're going to do a 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Scheduled broadcasting time. We're broadcasting on Rumble and we're also on YouTube. Hoping to get Facebook at some point working, but it just wasn't on my side today. So eventually I'll get that going. But we are live on YouTube and on Rumble. Catch Out of This World podcast on YouTube. Please subscribe to the show whenever you get the chance. Hit that little icon, that bell at the top right corner when you go to YouTube and go to Rumble. Of course, subscribe to the channel there. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I want to stop sharing the screen here. I'm just trying to get this going here. Just bear with me, guys. All right. We have Thomas Winterton of Skinwalker Ranch. Everybody knows the TV show, History Channel. It's been on for, I believe, almost 6 seasons now. They're coming up with a new season on the History Channel. I believe June is the start date. If I don't have that correct, Thomas can always recorrect me. Hopefully, we can get the correct information out there with him during the interview. I'm very humbled and honored that he could do the very premiere episode of Out of This World podcast. I want to welcome him. He's the superintendent. I want to read a little background about him before we get into the show. There's a lot to talk about, which is why I made it a 2 hour show. Thomas Winterton is the superintendent of Skinwalker Ranch, overseeing maintenance of the property, its facilities and equipment, as well as overseeing ranching activities, assisting in investigations. He's a native of the um, Utah Basin. Thomas is the founder and operator of multiple businesses. His unique background and experience give him an in-depth insight into the UFO phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch in the surrounding area. And he's had a lot of incredible, his own personal experiences to share along the way. And to give a little bit of background about Skinwalker Ranch, um, over 512 acres of property in if I say it correctly, in Utah County in Utah, known for paranormal UFO related activity. The area's been called a UFO Alley since the 1950s. It's had numerous reports of strange events, including skinwalkers coming from Navajo Indian tribe, ancient Indians that have lived in the area many, hundreds and thousands of years ago. We're not quite sure, what is really going on at the ranch, but we're hoping we can dive into that conversation with Thomas. So, without further ado, I want to go ahead and welcome him as he's just sitting here patiently, waiting for me to introduce him to the show. And I hope everybody can see me okay and everything's working fine. Thomas, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just hoping technical things here are working in our favor. So I'm you know, gonna go with it and we're gonna rock and roll here. So again, Thomas, thank you so much for doing the show. Really appreciate it. What got you involved? What was your first thing that made you want to live there, that drew you there? What was the first thing that drew your attention to? I want to be here, live here, and do Skinwalker Ranch. What was your attraction to Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, it definitely wasn't the paranormal. I I grew up in the Uinta Basin, about 15 minutes from the ranch in a town called Roosevelt. And growing up, I had zero interest in the paranormal. I never watched Star Wars or Star Trek or just really wasn't into science fiction. Um, and what got me into it is just when Brandon Fugel purchased the ranch from Robert Bigelow back in 2016, He didn't want anybody to know that he had purchased the ranch. He was, very successful real estate businessman, and was worried that it could, stigmatize him and harm him in his business endeavors. And so when he bought the ranch, he actually sent out one of his close confidants, Jim Morse. And so that first week that he purchased it, Jim came rolling into town, and actually it was a Sunday. And this is one of the things where I look back and, I really asked myself, was it a coincidence that this happened this way? Because he came into town on a Sunday, and I happened to be at church, and I got a phone call from one of my hotel guests. My wife and I own a couple small luxury boutique hotels, and one of them's there in Roosevelt. And I got a call from a guest saying that their TV wasn't working right. And so I asked him, is this something urgent? And they're missing their basketball game. And so I had to jump in the car and leave church and go down there, and I helped them fix their TV, or, put it on the right input. And as I'm leaving and walking across the parking lot of the hotel back to my car, um, there's black SUV comes rolling in the parking lot really slow. Now our hotel's small. I had come up with a way for us to be able to run it completely remotely, and so I could check people in, check them out, pretty much do almost anything online. Didn't require me to be present on the property. So, I probably only ever met 5% of my hotel guests that stayed with us, because it was so easy for them to come and go uh, without having to go to the front desk. So that being said, this black SUV pulls up to me, and the window comes down, and the gentleman said, "Is this a hotel?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And he said, "Well, can I see one of your rooms?" So I showed him one of our available rooms, and he said, "Yeah, we're definitely staying here." So I checked him in, and left, went back to church, pick up my family. And the next day when he was checking out, I happened to be in my office down there at the hotel, and he came and found me and thanked me for the great stay, and we got visiting, and he told me he was out representing a undisclosed businessman who had just purchased a piece of property called Skinwalker Ranch. And he asked me if I'd heard of it, and of course, growing up in the Uinta Basin, I had. There've been plenty of stories going around town about it. And he introduced himself. Yeah, Jim is a very successful real estate developer, and then of course representing another one. I'm a small town businessman, but I had big hopes and dreams in business. And so as I got visiting with him, I realized, this guy's a big deal. And he asked me, well, as we got visiting, he found out I was a licensed contractor here in the state of Utah. And he said, would you mind coming out and doing a property inspection for us at Skinwalker Ranch? Now I jumped on it. One, I mean, the lure of being able to go out to this, ranch that had been the center of so many strange stories and lore going around the area. Um, that was definitely luring, but again, I didn't care about paranormal. I went out there as an opportunity to develop a relationship with Jim and this mysterious businessman that had purchased the ranch. I saw it as opportunity to be able to rub shoulders with some of the who's who. And so I went out there for purely business reasons. Could have cared less about the paranormal when I first went out there. But I ended up going out and doing a property inspection. There was a lot of things, unfortunately, the ranch was in a really sad state of disrepair when Brandon purchased it. And there were some serious issues that needed to be addressed immediately. So I assisted him and helped get those taken care of, and then Brandon just asked me if I would, take it over and run it for him, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. Yeah, you've been there for quite some time. Um, and I can't imagine like all the experiences that you've had over those many years that you've been there. I know there's been a lot of controversy about some of the things before the property was bought, before the new ownership took over. Just for the paranormal events that have taken there. Of course, anything from, of course, government experiments and, the government overseeing things and being involved. And, I won't get into too much into that because we don't want the government chasing down my podcast and knocking on my front door and asking questions. um, but yeah, it's a very controversial site. Um, I know you guys have contacted like the locals about their experiences, and you've had guests come on the property and you've interviewed their experiences, what they've shared. What's been some of the things that have stood out to you the most personally, like from the interviews that you guys have done when you've welcomed other guests outside the properties onto the property?
A great question. Before I answer, am I coming through all right? Because my screen went black and I can't see anything, but
Yeah,
okay.
I was able to fix it. So everybody that's watching on YouTube and Rumble is a little bit behind. I did increase the screen to enlarge the whole view. So hopefully everybody will start seeing what we see. They're just a couple of seconds behind we are when you do broadcasting and streaming. So they're like a second or two behind us. So hopefully it'll catch up to everybody.
Okay. I can't see myself on the screen, so hopefully I don't look too
No, I can see you fine. Yeah.
okay, great. All right. Um, yeah, so to answer your question, that has definitely been part of the investigation is to reach out to the locals, especially those people that are, close to the ranch, ask them if they've seen anything. As far as what stands out to me, there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously we've heard some fantastic uh experiences from people, um, which before coming on the property, I would have rolled my eyes and dismissed as crazy talk. Having been there myself and witnessed some of these things now, it does it. I do believe these people when they're telling us these things. They're solid individuals. And the other thing is usually they start off by telling me, if you tell anyone I said this, I will call you a liar. They're not looking for publicity or notoriety, which to me adds some credibility to what they're saying. Is there's not any ulterior motives there that would drive them to make something up. So the two things that have really captured my attention is one, I found it interesting that as we've done this, we've got a 50-50 mix of responses. Half of the people around there have told us, you guys are crazy. I've lived here 25 or 30 years or however long it is, I've been here 5 years, and I've never seen anything, that's even the least bit spooky. And the other 50% say, "Oh my gosh, yeah, we've seen some crazy things," and then they will share things that match up very closely to some of the things that we've seen. Some of the things that were shared, um, were things that hadn't even aired on television. I'll give you an example. I was actually at the court paying for a speeding ticket, and the clerk that was helping me with that told me her parents owned a piece of property just to the west of the ranch. And I asked her if, well, did they ever see anything during their time there? And she said, oh yeah, they saw a lot of stuff. And I said, so out of all the things they saw, what would you say stood out to you as the craziest thing that they witnessed? And she said, well, one day my mom called me and said, you'll never believe this, but our sheep are back in the field and they're all spinning in circles. Now, to hear that, you think, well, that's strange. But it just so happens that we had just I mean, it hadn't aired on television yet. So she had no way of knowing that we had seen this, but we had watched a calf sit there and spin circles there out there at the drill site and ended up with some pretty traumatic injuries to its brain. Its brain was swelling and it had bleeding. It was bleeding out his eyes. Um, and this was a calf that was healthy 30 minutes earlier, and then something affected it, caused it to spin in tight circles. and then it had some severe health issues. So the fact that this lady's telling me that, of all the strange things our parents witnessed, probably the strangest one that stood out to her was the fact that all the sheep were out in the pasture turning in tight circles, round and round. So we've heard a lot of those things. So I think the first thing is that the fact that it's kind of been a 50-50 mix. Half the people have seen things, half of haven't, and I have to ask, why is that the case? And the other thing that has struck me, is just the sheer number of people here in the Uinta Basin that have, since the show aired, is the sheer number of people that have come forward to me in private and shared videos and photos and, evidence of things that have happened. And I'm talking, at this point, I mean, I've been there 9 years. I would say that it's up in the hundreds, and these are people that span all demographics. And so those are two things that really catch, my attention.
Yeah. What are some of the like videos and photographic evidence have you come across where, which I'm sure you get a tons of stuff that really made you go like, oh wow, yeah, this one really stands out the most. Like, is there any memorable one?
I've seen some pretty traumatic mutilation pictures, of local ranchers and their mutilated livestock. Um, Seen some pretty graphic, pictures of that. Um, Seen some videos of UAPs or UFOs. Um, Back in the day, these were shot with the old VHS cameras. Um,
Yeah.
and I've seen some pretty remarkable videos of those. There's one again. There's ones that come that maybe the video themselves is not that remarkable. Um, there's one of a. I can't go into it too much because, like you mentioned earlier, season 6 is gonna begin.
Yeah, we don't want to
It
yeah, we don't want to
premieres
spoil
on
them too much.
Yeah, it premieres June 3rd. But
Yeah.
yeah, we discovered some things in season 6, for which again I'm out in the community, and this is something where we captured some evidence of a certain type of thing, and I rolled my eyes and said, that's ridiculous, that we don't have that in the basin. And then I'm out in the community, maybe 2, 3 weeks later, and I have an individual tell me that their brother had just captured some video of something identical just a half mile to the south of the ranch. And the video itself is not that remarkable, but what it's documenting is. And so those are the ones that are really remarkable to me, are the ones that collaborate and line up with the things that we have captured on our own assets there at Skinwalker Ranch.
Right, right, exactly. Now, yeah, speaking of one of the episodes that I remember watching, and if a lot of the audience and fans of the show are listening or watching it, I remember that one cattle that was like stranded and all by itself and just like acting weird. It was like wouldn't go near any other cattle, and it was just like kind of wandering by itself, and it looked like there was something wrong with it. And then you guys had seen like there was something going on with its eyes or its vision, and you had a doctor, I think an animal doctor or an expert come check him out to make sure he was okay. And how did that cattle do after that? Was he okay, or was there still something wrong with him, or
So he still has. I visited with the rancher regarding that calf. And that's actually the one I was referring to just
yeah,
earlier. It was spinning in circles, and yeah, it has some
okay, yeah,
severe.
yeah,
So it was blind in both eyes. Both of its eyes were clouded over. Um,
yeah,
and had some bleeding coming out of the corner of each eyes, indicating
right,
some swelling on the brain. I visited with the rancher and the calf. Of course, they got the calf and the mom off of the ranch immediately as soon as the vet was done doing the examination. And the calf made a remarkable recovery. It still doesn't have eyesight in one of its eyes,
oh,
but it's alive and well today. Made a rebound and Yeah, they said that it appears to be just fine, with the exception of the fact that still doesn't have eyesight in one of its eyes, but we're
Yeah.
grateful that it at least regained it in one eye and that it was able to go on and make a recovery.
Yeah, yeah. Just a quick note, just want to make a shout out to our audience that for those who see us as a small screen, uh to our audience view, I apologize. I'm trying to get it back to full screen. I have been working on it, so please, I ask everybody just to have patience. I'm working on it. Just trying to figure out how to get us all full screen. Everybody can see us, but we're just in a little box. They can hear us and see us. But the interview part, the audio quality, I think is great. If anybody can't hear us for any reason, please let me know. But I think, as far as the audio quality and the video quality is okay. So I'm just like working out the kinks. I'm sorry to do this to Thomas on the first episode of the interview with him. I feel bad, but you know, uh, as a podcaster, we know like the technical things that go into this, right? Sometimes things work really well, sometimes things don't. So
Well, it's interesting in the fact that it doesn't really matter to me. I'm happy I'm honored to be, joining you on this first one. Uh, we have so many electronic issues out at the ranch, so many glitches. You could have been doing this for 100 years,
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised a bit if we were still having the same issues. Not to
right,
say that you blame everything on the ranch, but
yeah,
we deal with it so many times where equipment that's been tested and retested and has basically been foolproof suddenly has
right,
problems. So while I understand this is probably related to learning and kind of getting used to the new platform that you're using, uh,
yeah,
rather than anything to do with the ranch,
yeah,
we
yeah,
just go with the
absolutely.
flow over here. We're so used to it, it doesn't faze me.
No, that's great. I thank you for your patience yourself, again, yeah, you're used to it yourself. So you know right, how that goes. Yeah, so yeah, again, thank you so much for doing this for the first episode of Out of This World podcast. If just give a little brief background to the audience about myself. I've been involved in the paranormal and interested in paranormal researcher for over 25 years myself. I've been doing podcasting for around 10 years. I've been around the block as far as podcasts and paranormal. So I'm very much into that investigating with the gadgets and doing the investigative part of paranormal. So I can relate in a lot of ways to Thomas and what they do on the ranch because that's what intrigues me about the show is their investigative skills. And that's what I love about your team is that each and every single one of you guys like bring something different to the table and all you guys have all these great skills and quality about yourself. And I think that's what makes you guys really click as a team. And I think that's why you guys are getting such great evidence as a team.
Yeah, I have to say, people ask me, what's your favorite thing about working at Skinwalker Ranch? And I have to say it's definitely the team that I get to work with. Um,
Yeah,
we have a group of guys that are all very sincere and authentic and just looking to get to the bottom and find the answers. And you take each one of our individual and unique skill sets, they seem to mesh pretty well. And usually we can find one of us that can step up to whatever task is needed to be done at that moment.
right, right, exactly. So, I mean, like, and all the scientific things that you guys are also trying to do, and I just love how you replicate everything, and you repeat everything because that's the scientific method, right? And you guys replicate as much as possible because, let's face it, like the things that happen at the ranch, you just are, it's like unexpected. It's totally, you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I'm glad you bring that up. That's an important thing to remember. Sometimes people ask us, why are you doing this again? Or you guys are just repeating what you've already done. And that is true, because that is a
Yeah,
scientific method. And you obviously, if we do an experiment and we have something crazy happen, we have to repeat it again and see if we can get repeated, the same results. Um,
yeah.
and and that helps us a lot of ways. If we do get, results that are repeatable, then that helps us better craft the next experiment. And if it doesn't, that also provides a lot of data because then we have to say, why did it do it this time and not this time? What was different? And so I have to say, for as much as you guys see us do things and repeat things, we repeat them 1,000 times more off camera and trying to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah. And you guys have like a lot of editing, I'm sure, it's involved too, like because of the show. And there's probably a lot of things you want to like so many like different things you want to like dissect and share that you can't share, or like I can't imagine like you guys having like little arguments, well, but this should be thrown in there or that should be thrown in there. No, let's pick this one or that one, which, like you guys have captured a lot of great things.
Yeah, we go out and we film for the entire summer. We're talking about multiple months, 3, 4 months that we're out there filming. And at the end of the day, we have we have such great material that the production company then has the hard task of taking that and trying to pick and choose, what material they're going to show on the show. And we're talking about taking months and months of filming and condensing it down into, 14, 15, 16 episodes that are less
Yeah,
than an hour long. And so
right,
when you look at the hours that we put in the can versus the hours you see on television, really you're seeing the highlights. And look, we have an agreement with the network and with the production company that we're not going to fabricate or make anything up. They give what
right,
they
right.
get. And
Yeah,
and so we're very unique in the sense that, a lot of reality TV shows uh, are not as reality as people would like to think they are. But our show
right.
is 100% unscripted. Um, well, it's 99.9% unscripted. The 0.01% is we will do things to help them in the edit process, like getting out of scenes. Because each day when we go out to film, we don't know if that day is going to make it on television or not. And so
Right.
to help with the editing process, when we wrap it up for the day, we will give them a couple of options to help with the editing. Like, all right, guys, let's head back to the command center. All right, guys,
Yeah.
let's head over and see what the other guys are doing. That's the
Yeah.
only that's the only part of it, which is so insignificant as far as, that's not content. It's just to help with the flow. Um,
Right.
and at the end of the day, their job is to, our production company is called Prometheus Entertainment. Their job is to entertain people. And so it
Right.
is it is a give and take. We don't give them any we don't give them any false material to work with. And then they get some creative liberties to go and to edit it in a way that it's watchable and viewable. Because I can tell you right now, the majority of what we do, watching science is not very entertaining. And I say it's like watching paint dry. And Eric Bard, our principal investigator, will tell you it's like watching dry paint. And and so there's a lot of it that's tedious. Um, when things happen, there's a lot of drilling down into the weeds to try to figure out what's going on. A lot of that is not very consumable as far as entertainment. So that
Yeah.
gets cut out. And and I wish sometimes and you're right, we do have discussions as a team. There's been some pretty incredible things that have taken place. We've had some experiments for which the results were amazing. Unfortunately, they didn't make the cut of what was going to show on television because there were other things that the network and the production company felt were more intriguing. And so as a team, we're like, man, why didn't that get put in there? Or sometimes we wish that more of the tedious stuff did get put in to see so that people could see that equipment that you're watching fell on television in the show. We had just spent 4 hours previous testing it, retesting it, making sure that all the systems were working correctly, and without seeing how much labor went into, really making sure that we had gone through and checked all the boxes, you don't quite grasp just how remarkable some of these equipment failures are because you didn't see the hours and hours of prep that went into getting them ready. For example, a GPS sensor. Before before Eric will allow it to go, something as simple as a little GPS sensor that's on the drone. Eric wants to know that it's working reliably, and for 2 to 3 days before, he will move it around, test it. I have walked with him, like we're 2 hours before the cameras go on, and him and I are
Yeah.
walking together down around the field. We're going through a very specific route, and then he comes back in and puts that on and makes sure
Yeah.
that, because if it's not working, if it's throwing errors there, then chances are we've either got user error or we've got some kind of glitch in the software hardware. And so
Right.
then if that GPS sensor is malfunctioning during during the experiment, you can't say that there's anything anomalous about that. It was doing it before, right? If it's
Yeah.
and Eric will put it in the car, he's literally drove it 45, 50 miles outside of the ranch, and so that he's got good hard data to compare it to. That way, when we're in the middle of the experiment, if this sensor starts throwing error codes, the reason it's so remarkable to us is that that thing just traveled 50 miles around, it's been tested for 2 days and hasn't had a single glitch and not a single hiccup. And all of a sudden, we start the experiment and it starts throwing the error codes, it starts sending us underground, all the anomalous things that you guys see on television. And so there is part of me that wishes that some of that prep work could somehow be shown on television to show that we do our due diligence, and there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for these experiments.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm glad you brought that, like, watching paint dry kind of analogy because we do the same thing on paranormal investigations where we could sit for hours and hours and nothing will happen. And we're trying everything in our power to, muster up every idea and gadget to work and devices and, equipment and, trying all different methods. And, like I tell everybody that the locations we work with, we don't live there and work there every day. And we travel sometimes really far. We're staying at a hotel. We don't work there overnight. So we don't know the place like as well as they know. So like for something paranormal to happen, I tell everybody that it's a rare occurring, I think, to have that experience where I'm grateful where I could just have that one experience and say, I sat in this place for like I don't know how many hours with so much work that we put in, and we had this one experience that we can't explain. I think that one experience is great. Like nobody, I wish more people understood that. And I think you guys kind of understand that, after, part of that conversation.
Absolutely. The ranch doesn't tap dance on command. And
No.
and so, there's sometimes we go out there and we we just can't perceive anything anomalous happening. It
Right.
doesn't mean that it's
Yeah.
not necessarily taking place, but that part that we're focused on, whatever we're measuring with our instruments, it's kind of like we're watching channel 2 and the activity's happening on channel 5. We're missing it because we're focused on the wrong channel. Or maybe it's just not there. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I completely understand where you guys are coming from as far as that. I have that like mutual respect part of things, so to speak. So, yeah. Speaking of which, like one of the things I like, and I'm sure a lot of people like they don't understand, why do they keep shooting rockets? Why do they keep shooting this stuff up all the time? And I kind of understood the concept. Like finally, I was like, well, they're trying to incite something to happen because they started to realize that you guys were getting reactions from something, that you're not sure of what was reacting to that, but you were getting more responses to the phenomena of the ranch around the triangle and where you guys were shooting the rockets. So that explains a lot of the rockets, and I love that.
Yeah, we do. Especially, now I see comments in social media every now and again, like, some sarcastic remark about the number of rockets that we shoot off. I will confess. So I am not a scientist. I don't have a science
Right.
background. Um,
Yeah.
Eric will say, we're all scientists in our own way, but I am not educated as a scientist. That's not my area of
Correct. Right.
expertise. And there
Gotcha.
are things for which we did in the beginning. I remember, they Travis wanted to shoot off rockets. And I remember thinking in my mind, I'm like, well, who doesn't love shooting off rockets? I mean, I love shooting off rockets. I think they're awesome, and I'll get behind this wholeheartedly because that sounds like a fun activity. But I don't see what this has to do with science or the investigation, right? I
Right.
just thought I don't know how the two are going to really tie together. But like you said,
Yeah.
it was trying to stimulate or provoke a response. And we have
Right.
a saying at Skinwalker Ranch, Eric has pounded this into our heads at nauseum that correlation is not causation, meaning that, you know, that first time that we shot rockets off in season one, and then we saw a UAP up in the sky. Okay. Um, just you can't say, oh, well, because we shot off the rocket, a UAP appeared. That is just because they happen the same time does not mean they're related. They could be completely unrelated and most likely are unrelated. Um,
Right.
so the only way to know for sure is, well, let's shoot off some more rockets. If indeed if indeed that was the case, we shoot off a rocket and we see a UAP, then every time we shoot off a rocket, we should see a UAP, right? If they're related, you're going to get the same result. And so we started to shoot more rockets off, and we did see some correlating data that started to take place when we were shooting rockets. Now, are the two related? You know, I'd say at this point, 6 seasons in and thousands of rockets, I think I've seen enough to say that there may in fact be some type of connection that when we stimulate the airspace with that much energy, that maybe it does result in a reaction. And we have seen so many uh, anomalous things happen during and right immediately after launching rockets that the data, even though it's correlative and we're not saying one is causing the other, the data points sure line up pretty remarkable, and it starts to lead to that case that maybe there is some causation there, maybe there is some relation, one is affecting the other. But we're only going to get that by again testing that, testing it, testing it, testing it, and trying to get to the bottom.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like even 60s and then there's so much like I feel like you've only really hit the tip of the iceberg as far as your research there because like you've only been there a short period of time if you really think about like in the long scheme of things, right? um and I think like you've collected so much evidence, but it's like like it's hard to definitively say from a scientific standpoint what it is exactly you're dealing with, but at the same time there's so much evidence that there's definitely something going on. In your own opinion, what's your scientific like or your personal view as far as the things you've collected from a scientific standpoint? Do you think there's definitely a phenomena that nobody can explain so far?
100%.
Yeah,
I went from being a very hard skeptic to as we've come to say out there at the ranch, went from being a skeptic to an experiencer to a knower, right?
right.
I've experienced enough, I've witnessed enough that personally, not speaking for the team, but speaking for myself,
Yeah,
um, I
right.
I firmly believe that there is an intelligence behind what is happening out there. I've seen too many targeted and very specific anomalous events that
Hmm.
are specific to the situation,
Right.
specific to an individual. We're talking about things as simple as tri-field meters.
Hmm.
Have a pre-programmed range of values that it measures. It's measuring several different things, radio frequency, the electromagnetic fields, those kind of things. And when you see an individual that, we have an individual on the ranch that's carrying one of those, and all of a sudden there's four digits that are put up on the screen that are outside of the pre-programmed value range that they should be. And that number happens to be his bank card number his PIN number that he uses for all of his things. You
Hmm.
know, you say, oh, that's a really crazy coincidence. And and I tell people one time can be a coincidence, twice could be a
Mhm.
coincidence, three times could still be a coincidence, but now we're starting to get up there where if you're running the statistical odds of that, it's starting to
Right,
get
right.
pretty astronomical as far as it being a coincidence. But the time you get
Yeah,
to 50, 60, 70 events, you look like a fool trying to say, oh, that's a coincidence or try to explain it away. And that's where we find
right.
ourselves at the ranch today is we've been there long enough, we've captured enough evidence, enough data to show that we have hundreds of these events that have taken place, and some of them are specific. And a great example, we have the astronomers come out in season three. We've got this anomalous area up in the sky that has really captured our attention, and it's a place for which we've triangulated that there are broadcasting signals coming from, but there's nothing there. They're not a broadcast tower. There's not a drone
Yeah,
up that we can see that's broadcasting anything. Uh,
right.
and so we've tried multiple ways of studying this space, uh, and we've been, thwarted every time, whether it's trying to get up there with the helicopter or the airplane or um, weather balloons. Um, you know, every time we try to study that space, something has happened to our equipment. And so we look at that and we say, well, how are we going to study that space? Because every time we use equipment, something goes wrong. And so the idea was, let's go backwards and let's go very simple. Let's bring in telescopes because there's got to be something, we keep picking up these signals from that region. If there is something anomalous up there, maybe it might bend light. And all
Yeah,
that, for those that don't understand, that what I'm talking about, you hold up a clear glass of water and have somebody walk behind it. What happens? You'll see their
yeah,
figure is shaped as light bends around the glass, right? The light bends around it. And so we thought, what if we set up telescopes on the helipad and we'll watch the stars as they go across the sky, and as they go
yeah.
behind that area, if the light is distorted or bent in any way, we'll know that there's some type of anomaly up there that's bending light. That would be a clue. So we invite the Astronomers Club from Salt Lake to come out, who I
Hmm.
appreciate that, most of them were fairly skeptical on the stories they'd heard about the ranch when they arrived.
Yeah.
We go to set up the telescopes, and right off the bat, they start having issues with their equipment that they've never. So some of these guys have been doing this 30 and 40 years, long time.
Hmm.
These are well-seasoned experts, and they're having their equipment malfunction in ways they've never seen before. So there's clue number one. We finally get the exercise going, and they've got a little controller that goes with telescope it's a hard burned memory drive. Not
Hmm.
Can't connect it to the internet at all. It's a closed loop system. So
Okay.
it's got this burned list of stars, and the way it works is that before the exercise started, we showed them, we explained to them what we were trying to do, and we went through and we made a list of stars that would be tracking through that area over the course of the night.
Hmm.
So as the night starts, we he finds that first star in the catalog on the telescope and punches it in, and then the telescope will train onto that star, lock on, and it will track that star as it goes across the sky. Um, and so the star's it's tracking just fine. Everything's going. We're
Hmm.
doing other experiments while we're waiting for this slow process. This is literally an all-night experiment. The star is just about to get to that region that we're interested in when all of a sudden the telescope quits tracking. And we're like, what's going on? So he goes to get into the catalog. The star that it was locked onto, the star that he had chosen and locked it onto was gone. It had been removed out of the catalog. Wasn't there.
What? Wow.
All the rest of the stars were still there. And he was like, what the heck? So uh he picks the next star that's going to be going through, in the next 30 minutes or so. The telescope locks onto that star just like it's supposed to, starts tracking it
Yeah.
beautifully. When it gets to the identical place as the first one, all of a sudden it stops tracking and the star's gone off the catalog. We watched this. I watched this with my own eyes all night, and only the stars that we were interested in were removed from the catalog. None of the other stars that we could tell had been removed. The catalog looked complete with the exception of those few stars that we were trying to study. Now, tell me,
Hmm.
what technology exists that could go into a closed loop hard burn system and remove select stars and only the stars that we're studying off of this system? These guys, like, they were so perplexed and so upset by the end of the night. And we had so many crazy things happen that night. Do you want to talk about Target? I'll share with you an experience that happened on
Okay.
camera that same night. This is
Wow.
something that did not show on television.
Okay.
Um, so we had a very eventful night with all these stars being removed. We saw one of the closest UAP encounters I've ever seen on Skinwalker Ranch in my 9 years there. Of course, at that time it wasn't nine; it was 6 years on the ranch. Um, and so we had a very eventful night, clear full of all kinds of anomalous activity. Well, at the end of the night, we're done. We're cleaning up. Telescope guys are putting their telescopes away, and we're getting ready to just pack everything up. And as people are starting to clean up their gear, Travis turned and he said, I wonder if that 1.6 is still broadcasting. Now, this 1.6 gigahertz signal, um, eh, for which, again, you want to talk about targeted, we understand, to the audience members that are out there that know, we understand
Right.
1.6 range has actually got a lot of things that, that's the kind of the range of the satellites. There's a lot of known things that are in that range. So we know there's supposed to be signals in 1.6. We see them, we've cataloged them, we've watched them. The signal that we're talking about, that we're focused and interested in, is one that pops up and it correlates exactly with when we start experiments, when we're monitoring stuff, and when we're
Yeah.
done, the
Every
signal goes
time. Yep.
away.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and so Travis said, "Well, I'm curious to see if that signal's there." So he looks. He's still got his spectrum analyzer pulled up on the computer, and he scrolls over to it, and sure enough, I'm over there with the directional antenna, moving it around, and then sure enough, we find it. And so now we've got it locked in on the direction of where it's coming from, which is always different. That's interesting. Um, and and Travis, there's a little button there on the software that you can click that if it's got a like a radio signal in there, that you can. He clicks on the FM modulation button, so like a radio station, you push that, and if there's information that's not scrambled and encrypted, you can listen to it. Most of the
Right.
time, what you hear is static, just your regular snow, as we call it, white noise.
White noise. Yeah.
Um, but he clicks on it and we hear ourselves being broadcast over the 1.6. So as we're talking, it's as if we're speaking into a microphone, we're hearing it come over the speakers on the computer.
It's like echoing through something.
Yeah. Yeah. So this had happened a week earlier when we were doing an experiment. And if you go back to season 3, you'll see this. We were doing an experiment with Kendra in an airplane. There was so many things going on, so many moving pieces. We heard ourselves being broadcast over this 1.6, and we only had time to just quickly. I ran outside, Travis ran outside, Bryant ran outside, and to see if we were still broadcasting. We thought maybe there was a bug in the command center or a microphone,
Hmm.
or the other thought we had was that we all have mic packs on us for the audio. So
Okay.
as we're filming, we've all got mic packs that are broadcasting a signal to the audio guy. And then the
Right.
cameras are also picking up audio. They're broadcasting it to the audio guy as well. He's got a big audio bag that pulls it all in and records it, right? And
Right.
so we thought maybe like there's some harmonics at play where our signal is getting, amplified and bleeding over into other frequencies. And,
Okay.
and so
I'm
we
with
didn't
you.
have, because of all the moving parts of the airplane experiment and the fact that we had a plane involved, we didn't have the luxury of time to really drill down and see what was causing that. But here
Yeah.
we are, we find ourselves at the end of this telescope experiment. Here we are listening to ourselves being broadcast over this 1.6, and we're done for the night. So we have all the time
Wow.
in the world to really drill down. Now, the first culprit would be our mic packs that we are the ones that are, it's bleeding over. It's us that's causing it. So
Okay.
because it's the end of the experiment, and this is why you don't see it on television, was we turned off all the cameras. We took all of our mic packs, turned them off. The audio guy turned the audio bag off. We turned off all of the electronics with the exception of the one computer that Travis was using to monitor the signal with the SDR,
Mm.
spectrum analyzer.
Yeah.
And we're still hearing ourselves be broadcast. Well, maybe there's some kind of microphone in Travis's computer. So we walk, clear to the other side of the helipad, and we're talking in really soft tones. Something, something that the computer would never pick up,
Right.
150 feet away.
Yeah.
We're still being broadcast over that 1.6, crystal clear and perfect volume.
That's
So then
crazy.
it gets even stranger.
Yeah.
We come back over, we're standing there, we're like, what the hell is going on here? So we grabbed one of our executive producers and we put him between Travis and I. Travis talks, it broadcasts. I talk, it broadcasts. The guy that's standing shoulder to shoulder with us talks, and it does not broadcast.
Wow.
Okay. So it was targeted enough to pick up only the team members. So
Wow.
if I remember right, it was picking up Travis, Eric, myself, Dragon, and Caleb.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody else. Now,
Wow.
what technology do we have out there that you can pinpoint into an individual? I mean, we're literally standing shoulder to shoulder with our producer.
Yeah.
And Travis and I are both being broadcast, and he's in the center of us, and he's not. I'm not aware
Right.
of a technology that can just pick the two of us up, and we're outdoors. And now we know it's happened outdoors, indoors, and it's not us. We've turned all our equipment off, and
Yeah.
that was people ask, what's the there's the most disturbing thing, the scariest thing, the craziest thing, all these things we get asked. I will tell you that's probably the most disturbing thing that I've experienced on Skinwalker Ranch for the sheer reason, for the pure reason that um, I went home that night feeling so violated,
Mm.
wondering in my head, do I ever truly have any privacy? What could possibly, what could zoom in on me indoors, outdoors, it didn't really matter, and
Yeah.
broadcast. Is my private phone call or my private conversation with my wife or my kids,
Yeah. You're being targeted. Yeah.
right? Like, is that being rebroadcast? Is somebody listening to me? And I let home that light. And I'll tell you, to this day now, I have never, since that day, felt like I truly have my privacy. I'm always wondering who's listening, who
Yeah.
is listening in. And so back to the question of what do I think it is? Well, some of these experiences that I just related to you, the,
Yeah.
the pin number, the stars, the specific stars being removed, specific people being rebroadcast, that all feels extremely targeted. And I can't help but say, that's not random. That's
No.
specific and it's targeted, and there has to be an intelligence behind that. And
Yeah.
so that's a very long-winded answer, but it's a very complicated question. And all
It,
I can
it,
tell you is I feel like there's an intelligence, whatever it is, there is an it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, 100%. You guys are definitely being targeted because it's only specific people that are being involved that's happening to. Real quick, Thomas, I actually have an experience myself I'd like to share with you that's actually a little bit similar to that experience when you guys were being echoed, when your conversation was being echoed back through that. We were using, I don't know if you ever heard of a device that we could call the spirit box that we utilize on investigations to communicate with the dead. We try to have the hope that they come through the spirit box over sweeping channel. Doesn't really always stay on a radio station. It uses white noise and static so that, there's that theory they use that to communicate through, right? So we were using the spirit box, and me and my wife were inside a house, and we had two other male investigators that were on the property, but outside away from the house. And they were echoing through the spirit box that we were using inside the house. How does that happen? They weren't even using any electronic devices. We were the only ones with the spirit box. How are their voices echoing through the spirit box? So it's kind of similar.
Yeah, that's
I
very
can't explain that
interesting.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's eerie. you
it
know.
definitely makes you pause, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. So, just real quick, guys, those who are tuning in right now to Out of This World podcast, episode number one, the premiere episode. Apologies to the fans, apologies to everybody tonight for the small box that you're seeing. I have yet to figure out how to get it maximized to full screen. I don't think it's my end. I think it's Restream that I'm using. Everything else is working perfectly. Video, audio, it sounds good. I think the interview itself is going great. I'm having a good time here with Thomas Winterton. But I do promise, Thomas, I'm going to edit everything afterwards to make it look as best as if that never happened. So I'm a very good video editor, so I can make that work.
Good luck
Uh,
with
yeah,
that.
man. Yeah, absolutely. So, getting right back into this, again, I'm glad we have, almost 2 hours or 2 hours of this interview because there's just so much that, like, when I did shows, I only did shows for like an hour, and when I had a guest, like, the hour just goes by so fast, and by the time you get the interview going, it like I felt like the interview was like about over, and I'm like, there's so much more questions I had to ask that person, and I'm glad I have 2 hours just for this show because we have such amazing guests like Thomas tonight. We're gonna have a lot more amazing guests coming on Out of This World podcast. I have some great guests coming up. And I'll announce that later on. I don't want to take up too much more time of Thomas because I know he's very busy. He's got, events and tours and other things for Skinwalker Ranch. So let's get back into the interview real quick. So one of my questions is the pilots, the people who fly the helicopter for Brandon. I can't remember his name. I'm sure
Cameron.
yeah. Um, those pilots, when you guys do experiments and you're flying around and you're doing certain things, and I can see the nervousness of the pilot, so to speak, when they think they see these UAPs and these unexplained things that are flying possibly around them. How do they like explain that when they come back down to the ground when they land? They're like what was that? How do they keep their composure after that?
Well, that's a great question. I can only speak as an observer, seeing them, and hearing them as they land. Cameron is just, I mean, Cameron is as good a pilot as you're gonna find. He's just
He's
so
so chill. Like when
comfortable.
he flies, he's so chill and he just like, yeah, he's absolute professional about it.
I've flown with Cameron a lot, and I've always felt very safe with him. And there's been some times that he's come down, he's been pretty rattled.
Yeah,
Um, the experiment where we were trying to go up to that 5,000 foot mark up above the triangle, and
yeah.
there was something interfering with the equipment on his helicopter. I mean, telling him that there was an object 38 feet below them, and we couldn't see it through the binoculars, we couldn't. Bryant and I were on the ground. We could hear him over the radio tell us what was going on, and we were looking for it with binoculars. We couldn't see anything. Um, Now we did capture something. A camera appeared like there could have been some translucent shape that was under the helicopter at the time, but
Yeah.
it's hard to know whether that's some type of artifact of the camera or whether that's truly something that was distorting the light. You
Right.
know, we can't say for sure with the data that we have, but what we do
Yeah.
know for a fact is that that altimeter was telling him there was something 38 feet under, and when he would do evasive maneuvering, it would go away and quit. Um, It'd go back to working normal for a couple seconds, almost as if there was something under the helicopter. And when he'd peel off sharp, it would take a second for it to come back underneath the helicopter to regain.
Right.
It
Yeah.
it really felt like a game of cat and mouse a little bit, and
Yeah.
so he came down. I mean, the whole group is a little bit shaken. And the other thing is that Cameron, not only does he see the stuff up in the air, but he sees how our equipment is affected on the ground. Our
Sure.
A lot of our electronic instruments are messed with. Um, and when you're in a helicopter, and a very sophisticated helicopter where much of it is reliant on its electronics, its avionics working
Yeah.
correct, as he watches things on the ground get fried and malfunctioned. It I know I've visited with him, quite a few times, where he really enters that ranch prayerfully because he's worried that something at the ranch could interfere, in fact, affect the helicopter. And so that's always every single time we use a aircraft in an experiment, we all are very nervous about what could happen.
Yeah. No, that was the one word I was going to bring up. I can't imagine how nervous he is. I know I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hate flying, so I know I would be. Um, but here we are. We're going to get into now. One of the things I wanted to ask about. What's your thoughts on Travis's theory about it being he's mentioned the idea of it being a portal or some kind of wormhole. I love the equipment that's been used as far as LiDAR and the guys and the crew that you brought on to do LiDAR, you know, uh, ground penetrating radar and specialized equipment that have just the data they've collected is just like, wow. Like the shape of the data and everything that pops up on the screen is like all I can recommend is the viewers is just Google it and you can find pictures of their data and what things look like when they collect it. But what's your theory on the portal idea or the wormhole idea with all the experiments that you've been involved with?
Well, the first couple times he brought it up, look, it's always fun to go out and think about the exotic explanations. Oh, maybe it's a portal or a wormhole.
Yeah,
But I mean, in my mind, after you get done like doing the exotic thing and saying, "Oh yeah, what if that was?" There's then if there was even the suggestion that it actually was that, it'd be accompanied by a big eye roll on my account because I just wasn't there yet. Um,
right.
but look, over the last 2 years, you look at season 4, season 5, the data that's collected. Um, what does a portal look like? I don't know. Would I even know it if I saw it? You know, Travis and Eric talk about the theories around portals, and that if one of them was to happen, the gravitational pull would be so great it would rip us all apart. It would rip the Earth apart. That's according
Yeah.
to mathematics that's been used to theorize about what it would take to create one, right?
Hmm.
Under those circumstances, you're like, well, we haven't had anything like that out there. I mean, it would. it would destroy the whole earth if that was the case.
Yeah.
So you have to say, well, if it was a portal, it's operating in a way for which we've never contemplated because there's no theories out there that don't involve, that I'm aware of portals that don't involve us, like, being ripped to shreds by the gravitational pull.
Yeah.
Um, Here's what I know. Like, I went from eye roll of that's, while that's fun to talk about, to actually
Yeah.
think that that's really happening is the stupidest thing I've heard yet. That's really going out there on a branch in outer space when it comes to grounded ideas. But
Yeah.
we have collected so much evidence. For example, you look at the LiDAR data that Omnitech did, where it shows a big black hole in the triangle. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, when I was giving Travis a hard time about it, he points out, he's like, what is definition of a portal? It's, something where the space is it opens up into another place. Well, what we know is we know how LiDAR works. That's a very well-known technology. Send out a
Right.
laser beam hundreds of thousands of times a second, and then it return a certain amount of that returns back to the instrument, which can be measured from the time that it went out to the time that came back. And then when we pull it up on the computer can look at and analyze that data. We can see so many things. First of all, we can get a very accurate 3D model of what that is with the LiDAR. The other thing we can see though is what's called reflectivity, and that is how much of the laser beam reflected back to the instrument, and that can tell you the reflectivity. Obviously, different materials are going to reflect back the laser to different. Dirt's got a different reflectivity rate than a piece of sagebrush or a rock or water. They all reflect different. And so when you look at the reflectivity map, you would expect, and it does it. The one that I'm most familiar with is we pull it up and we call it a heat map. The areas with the highest reflectivity come back as red, and the ones with the lowest rate of reflectivity come back as purple. Now, as he's doing that area of the triangle that he's scanning, in that area that with that had that great big black void, we have gravel, clay, sagebrush, grass, wood. There's some cement, metal, some telephone poles. I guess that's wood, but there's, and even in the dirt, there's some of the dirt that's alkali, there's some of it that's not, clay,
Yeah.
sand. All of these would be giving us back a different rate of return on the reflectivity when we look at it. When we look
Correct.
at that void, we've got that center part that's black. What does that mean? It means that in that region, no data was returned to the LiDAR. It did not register a return. No laser beams reflected back in that area.
Hmm.
So you look at the definition of a portal, we have at least what we can verify is a data portal, right? The laser was for sure going out in that area. We know that for a
Yeah.
fact, but nothing was returning. So that data went somewhere. So we
Yeah.
at least have a provable data portal, so to speak. But then when we turn on the reflectivity map and we look at it, we have a perfect red ring outside that black void,
Yeah.
but you got almost a perfect ring on the outside of that. And the drone, I believe, was at 31 feet, and it was doing a sweeping pattern for 3 or 4 minutes, back and forth, back and forth. So that entire time, that black area was getting hit hundreds of thousands, millions of times with laser. And for that 3 to 4 minutes, nothing returned really. And it was just in that area. It's hard to say that that would be equipment malfunction because it's returning everywhere else. And what I explained about the reflectivity and those different substances returning different reflectivity, you would expect when you look at the heat map that the clay would have had a different reflectivity back than the sagebrush, but that's not what we saw.
Yes.
It was as if all that data in that center was being displaced or it was like hitting something unseen and reflecting it around, causing that red circle, right?
Right.
Because outside of that red circle, when you get away from the triangle, the returns are all exactly what you would expect, indicating that the
Yeah.
device was working properly, was registering properly, everything was going. So, to the question of portals, the more data that we collect and stay tuned for season 6 and what's going to be revealed there. Um,
Yeah.
Again, it's one of these crazy things that I would have rolled my eyes and said, that's absolutely stupid. But the more evidence that we collect, you have to start asking yourself, are we in fact seeing um, effects of a portal? And is maybe a portal operates in a format for which we have never considered, or we don't have the technology to even, go there, so to speak.
Right.
I don't know. It's one of those things where sometimes the more data we get, the more answers that we get, the more questions it creates.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I was gonna actually say you're probably at the point where you guys are probably coming up with your own scientific and building your own equipment to try to monitor and document things that nobody's ever done before because like you said there's no devices or no scientific equipment out there or a scientist that can you know figure this out yet. We don't know what it is.
Well, we got on Amazon and the paranormal meters just they weren't selling them. We just didn't we couldn't find we couldn't find any company that makes a portal meter. And so yeah, you're right. We don't even know what it is we're looking for. So
Yeah,
we say it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, except for, the ranch is the haystack, and we don't know what the object is we're looking for. So we don't know if it's a
yeah,
needle or a rock or what. How do you
yeah,
how do you even begin? If you know for a fact it's a needle, you go in there with a magnet, at least have a
yeah,
shot. But
right, right,
we don't know what it is. And so
yeah.
we have been shooting in the dark. And I'll tell you, so Eric Bard, our principal investigator, he is my mind just went blank. I mean, he's a physicist, but he is product development. That's the word I was looking for.
Right.
His career has been product development. And the guy's got dozens and dozens of patents to his name of products that are out in the space today.
Nice.
They're used by everyday Americans and
Yeah.
all around the world. And so he is very brilliant at kind of taking the data that we're getting. And I'm going to give a shameless plug right now. We have a insider platform at our website, skinwalker-ranch.com. And for our insiders, it's a subscription-based model. And all the money that's used that comes from the subscriptions goes back into the science at the ranch. So it's a
Nice.
worthy cause, right? But as part of that, they get kind of a behind the scenes look at the ranch and those insiders, anyone that's an insider that's out there listening to me will tell you, Eric regularly is developing new methods for new equipment, new methods, and he regularly showcases these on the insiders. He'll have them help him experiment with them, test them, use them, and he is constantly. I could tell you over the last 2 months, he's been working on a platform that he calls Metaframe, and it is pretty remarkable. He's taken our ability to capture things off of our video surveillance and really amplify them out. It's quite an amazing platform he has, and we have dozens and dozens and dozens of cameras out there. So for every 1 hour of the day, we're accumulating 50, 60, 70 hours worth of video data. It
Oh my
becomes very
God.
overwhelming. It's
Oh,
and while we are fully implementing, uh AI to help us sift through that.
mm,
AI still has its limitations. It's still
Yeah.
not a human eye. It still does not capture everything. You can
Right.
train it, but it doesn't replace a human being. And so our insiders have been valuable tools to help. That they're like an extension of the team. They help us go through that. But
Nice.
this Eric is constantly building new platforms to help us quickly and efficiently scrub through, that enormous amount of data and pick out the anomalous or just the extraordinary data out of that. So
Yeah.
um, we have developed a lot of proprietary platforms, built a lot of Eric and I together. We're building a platform that's involves. I've done a lot of the hardware side. He's doing the software and the more sophisticated hardware, the chips and stuff. But
Nice.
we're always innovating and coming up with new instruments.
Yeah, definitely. You have to, like, in your situation. Um, I have a couple of more questions that are heavy towards the show, but before I get into that, I want to know what fun is Thomas Winterton into other than living on the ranch 24/7, doing what you do on the ranch. What are things that you and your family like to get into? I know I want to give some time to plug what your wife does on the side. I know she's into some stuff. I want to leave some time for that. You can throw that stuff out there whenever. What is it that you do on your off time?
Well, I love to travel. And I got three amazing boys, and so they're in late teens, early adulthood, and so it's been a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together. We're big sports junkies, love football. Um,
Nice,
but we try to spend as much time as we can at the beach. I'm a big beach bum and
nice,
love to go out and try and surf and we spend a lot of time in the ocean. We love going out nature, taking my dogs out and going out and um, being out in nature and really just my joy in life is hanging with my family and I'm, if I'm with them, we're probably having fun no matter what we're doing.
nice, nice. So yeah, and what is it that your wife is into? She's into some kind of meditation?
Yeah, something I'm so excited about. So
Okay.
no, yeah, my wife has a meditation program out there. It's been out now
Okay.
uh for oh my gosh, it's been out I think 8 years now, but
Okay.
it's now global, and
Nice.
we are
Congrats.
literally hours away. I mean, in the next day or two, we're just working out the fine glitches and bugs. She has a meditation app that's been out, and we opted instead to replace it with a much more sophisticated website that does more. So her meditation program is remarkable in the fact that it uses essential oils and frequency to get people into a state of theta, into a theta state of mind meditation.
Nice.
Uh, we're talking in 45 to 60 seconds,
Mm.
which she has done this program with meditation experts around the globe, as far away as India. And
Wow.
we're pretty young, and so I think the first premise when she rolls up on site is they look at this young girl and they're like, look, dear, I've been doing this for longer than you've been alive. What are you going to teach me, right? And then she walks them through her meditation process, which is so simple. It takes 3 to 5 minutes to do the meditation, and yet these experts, I'll never forget the one who was really kind of skeptical and had been asked to do this by his company, so he was kind of there because he had to be. Uh, and my wife walked him through the meditation, and when they finished, there was tears streaming down his eyes, out his eyes, and he's just like,
Oh,
how did you do that?"
yeah.
Um, right. And this program that she has, it's something for someone like me. I have a very active brain. It is hard for me to get my brain to focus on one thing for any longer than 30 seconds, right?
I'm
A
the same
lot of
way.
people we talk to have ADD, ADHD, very hyper minds, and have a hard time focusing. This is the meditation program for them because literally it is so simple, and children do it and they have remarkable experiences. But we're talking about people being able to have incredible life altering meditative experiences in as little as
Right,
5 minutes. And so, like I say, the website's live right now. We're still the best has been yet to drop. It should drop in the next 24 to 48 hours. So I'd say, definitely by this weekend it'll be up and going, and encourage people to go try it out. It's an incredible. It's changed my life. We have testimonials from around the globe of people
right.
who have literally had their entire lives changed because of it. So
Right. Well, whatever it is I can do to help, if I can help promote it on my podcast, get the info out there, send me any information, links, whatever info. I'd love to have her on the show maybe sometime in the future and help promote her, what she's into and get it out there for you guys and whatever it is I can contribute in whatever small way. And you're welcome to connect with that.
awesome. Well, I'll tell you, it'd probably be the best show you ever do because her story is amazing and what she's doing is remarkable. And the website is melissawinterton.com. And I'm
Yep.
going to be as soon as I know people can get on, it's not going to crash on them. I'll be blasting it out at nauseum on my social media. So
Nice, nice, nice. Well, I wish her a lot of luck with that because that takes a lot of it's like a lifetime of work and dedication to do something like that, and very commendable. And I wish her a lot of luck.
well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no worries. I wanted to make sure I had time for that in this interview because we're can't believe it's like 9:30 already. Um,
Fine.
like I said, yeah, time flies when you're having fun with guests. So, and I'm having a lot of fun. I hope Thomas is. I hope I haven't been too boring.
No, I'm enjoying. I can't believe it's gone so quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, when I get the bugs worked out of this system, I hope to maybe invite you back on the show when things are done correctly and we can do it all over again. And maybe after season six, we can talk about stuff and after season six and stuff. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, well, have me come back and do the 50th. How about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so I'm sure this has been brought up. I'm not sure if it has or not, but being the interviewer, I got to think of good questions, right? So I'm sure, you've watched other television shows that are out there. There's one that's called The Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch, which is not that far from you guys. Um, there's a totally different concept of what their agenda and what they want to do as far as what they're into. They're after treasure more than anything, but they've had some weird stuff as well, like, things they can't explain. Um, you know, a lot of things like what you guys have experienced, like, equipment failures for just no reason. There are things that just happen to their equipment that shouldn't happen. Have you guys ever thought of reaching out to them and working as a collaborative, or has it ever been brought up like, hey, we should contact so and so and be like, let's, butt heads a little bit and, you know, uh, maybe like to discuss some ideas or something?
Yeah, yeah, so we're definitely aware of them. And I think it's telling the fact that the Uinta Basin is an amazing place. It's someplace I'm very
Yeah,
proud to call home. The anomalous activity is not limited to the 512 acres of Skinwalker Ranch. I think
right.
the basin has a long history of well-documented anomalous things that
Yeah,
span the entire Uinta Basin. So I think, if anything, the fact that there's another show on cable television that is showcasing some of that, speaks to the fact that the Uinta Basin is a special place in the world,
yeah,
definitely a hot spot. As to collaborating, here's the thing. We're very collaborative at the ranch, and we are always bringing in third-party experts, subject matter experts. We have not reached out to Blind Frog, and part of the reason is we were very blessed when we set up the contract and the deal for our show.
Gotcha. Yeah.
We have 100% creative control on our show as far as, Brandon, they cannot force or make us say or do anything. That's very, very rare in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent Blind Frog has that. Maybe they do, maybe they, I don't know.
Right.
But when we're talking about entertainment, we have to be very, very careful. Um, and and so I could say that, I wish them the best of luck. I hope they find the treasure and the answers they're looking for. But as far as collaboration, what we have to be careful with is that we make sure that we're protective of our investigation,
Sure.
and that we never want any cross contamination. And I'm not saying there is any to be had,
Yeah.
but we can't control what happens in that investigation. We have zero control over it. Are we interested in data? Sure, absolutely. Anytime something's happening in the basin, we're interested in that data. It would be irresponsible for us to cherry pick what we choose to take. And so if there is credible, hard evidence of things, we absolutely are going to take a look at it. As far as collaboration, though, I'll just say we sure wish them the best of luck with their endeavors, and I hope that they're successful in everything they're doing. We're just laser focused in on what we're doing, and so probably not any cross collaboration that I can see,
Yeah.
but again, that's that. I think it's to both of our investigative efforts.
Yeah.
I think it's to protect both efforts, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. No, I totally understand. None of that. It's like totally two different investigations. Like they're after treasure. You guys are after like, totally, completely out of this world phenomena that you guys are trying to figure out. And it's like two totally different, aspects and concepts there. So, I hope, again, same here. I wish them luck. I hope, they find what they're looking for and vice versa. But I just thought that would be a cool question to ask.
Yeah. Well, it's one that comes up because and we do share a relatively, they're probably, I don't know, 40 miles away,
Yeah.
but still share
Yeah,
the
I wasn't
same
sure how close
information.
they were. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like 40 miles to the north. Um,
Okay.
so, relatively speaking, but they're absolutely still, in the Uinta Basin. So we do share the same geographic footprint as far as the basin goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I love, it's very commendable. I just want to throw out there because, I respect the Native American, culture and ancient, things they do. And, the Navajo, has a very big history there, obviously. And, I love the way you guys are so careful with how you go about that and the respect you give them and vice versa. And I love, some of the ones that have come on your to interview by and, you had that, I forget his name, the sheriff that came on
Oh,
to,
Chris Porrett?
yes. Yes. I love that, that you guys had him on there and I just love how you guys work with them and it's commendable and I love how you collect those interviews and just, I respect that because I respect the Native American, the Navajo and people and just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of respect for, the Indian culture and the matter of fact, Jim Morse, who's he's my link to the ranch. He's the one that brought me on the very beginnings when Brandon purchased us. The Brandon sent Jim out here. One, Jim and Brandon have a very close relationship that goes a professional relationship and a personal relationship that goes back
Nice.
decades.
Hmm.
But beyond that, Jim Morse has spent his entire adult life in efforts relating to helping the Native Americans. Jim has literally helped raise tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for the Native
Wow.
American scholarships. So he's
Yeah.
always had a very special place in his heart for, the Indian culture. He made an honorary member of the Navajo tribe, was very close friends with the president, Joe Shirley, and so the respect, we have a lot of respect for them. Obviously, the namesake of the ranch, Skinwalker
Yeah.
Ranch, is derived, from the legends that come from the Navajo tribe, uh,
Right.
and their interactions with the Ute tribe. And so we're surrounded by the reservation. There are neighbors,
Yeah.
and just, so many great. I can tell you that since the show's come on, I have met so many incredible tribal members that have been, not only informative with the information they have, but just so gracious and kind, and just, good.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. I was just throwing that out there in case there's anybody, any of them listening to our podcast and our interview tonight. So I just want to throw that out there in case they were.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. We have so
Yeah.
much respect for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, that kind of is like a segue to my next question, which is the bones, the animal bones that you guys came across, the stream and the small river that you have there, the dire wolf theory that they came up with, that possibility of being, and then just recently scientists claim they've resurrected the dire wolf, and it's kind of scary to think that we're in this lifetime where we can clone things that were supposed to be extinct how many years ago. And but then you guys had these bones on your ranch, and I'm like thinking to myself, I hate to say it, but I think the dire wolf may be maybe not so extinct, because you guys have had bones, and do you guys like have any idea how long those bones have been there? What was the investigation like when you brought the expert in to look at them, and what was his further thoughts on that examination?
Yeah, so the legend of Dire Wolf actually has, it's one of the first stories that I was told about Skinwalker Ranch, and that was that Shermans had a dire wolf come in and try to
Right.
pull the calf out of the corral, and there's
Yeah.
an entire story around that. And you go back and watch us tell this story on season one. Like,
Hmm.
I could never tell the story with a straight face without pretty significant eye roll. And I thought, I mean, here's an animal that's supposedly been extinct for 10,000 years, and yet we've got the story of dire wolf being on Skinwalker Ranch. Then, then we pull this creature out of the river. And to answer one of your questions, it wasn't just bones; it was the entire carcass. I mean, it was
Yeah.
flesh, hide. It looked like it had recently drowned within the last couple days, previous days. It had drowned in the creek, and then it had got snagged up in that tree. So when we went over to the stench was, I have smelled dead animals many times in my life. Um, I've never smelled anything like that. It was
Mm.
beyond any stench I could even begin to describe. It was
Wow.
horrible. Um, and as we picked it up, I mean, it's still got its flesh on. There's maggots all over it. I mean, it's just disgusting. And
Oh,
we let the face up out of the water, and I mean, it startled all of us. Kind of jumped back a little bit because I just thought it was like a coyote that had drowned. Pulled
right.
its face up. It was no coyote, and so I wish, oh my gosh, I wish had we known what we had discovered, we would have stopped right there. We would have got some tarps and bags, and we would have captured that entire carcass and pulled it out of the river. As
Hmm.
it was, we thought, we're dealing with a canine, or some type of, we we figured out it's probably a dog or something. So
Hmm.
took and we cut its lower jawbone off, and we took it in. We gave it to Ben Woodruff, who's a biologist.
Okay.
Um, Ben did a pretty extensive investigation on it. And one thing I wish we could have shown a little more of on television is when Ben came back to report to us his findings. We did that over a web a conference call. Uh,
Right.
we were there in the command center. That conference call was several hours long. Ben
Mm.
was so thorough in his analysis of it, and he started. He had the jawbone that we brought him, and then he started off by showing the jawbone of several different canines, showed us the number of teeth that they had, the shape, like really started getting into fine detail of what he was looking at, as a biologist, what he's looking at. He pulls up he has a coyote jawbone. He had one of a young bear. He had one of a wolf, and I mean, like I said, that report that he did for us, we were on that call for several hours. It was
Yeah.
very detailed, very thorough.
Wow.
He was convinced that that jawbone did not belong to a domesticated canine,
Hmm.
or even, it was not a canine. And he could show us the specific reasons, the number of teeth, the way that they're placed. Like, he had all of his reasons. This is not a dog. Then he showed us this is not a coyote. This is not, this is not, you know, it differs from a wolf because of this and a bear. Then he brings out a fossilized dire wolf jawbone, and it was a pretty close match. Um,
Wow.
right? And now we're thinking, at least for me, I can speak for myself. I'm thinking back to that story of that dire wolf pulling that calf through the thing. I'm
Yeah, with
thinking,
the German.
here's another example of something I thought was so stupid. Yet here we are, our biologist is sitting here showing us that there's some similarities here between, I mean, it's the closest match of everything he showed us.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
I will say that that was the first step in trying to figure out what that was, the
Yeah.
analysis that he did for us. Um, there's obviously more investigation that can be done on that. And I'll say to that, stay tuned to season 6.
Nice.
Um, you may or may not see some more analysis of and investigation in on
Oh,
the
nice.
findings.
Nice. Yeah. Well, what kind of is scary to think is that, like, what did it die from? Like, did something kill it? Like, what made it deceased? Like, like finding it like that in itself is kind of odd too.
You're exactly right. Like, you wouldn't expect an animal to just fall in. Look, that creek is just that, it's a creek. And
Right.
yes, there's some deep spots in it, but I can assure you, probably any canine or wolf or coyote that happened to fall in, they'll need to have to paddle 2 or 3 feet any direction to find solid footing and be fine. So you
Yeah.
raised a very valid point. What
Yeah.
caused it? Did did it die from drowning? Did it die from something else and fall in the river? Like, it's a valid question.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. So hopefully we find out in season 6. So
Yeah, stay tuned.
stay
Uh,
tuned.
and I'm excited, especially after this latest news of this company that did this that just brought these 2 dire wolves or 3 dire wolves back.
I know,
Um,
crazy, right?
I'll encourage people, watch season 6 and then go back and watch that report and
Right.
tell me what you think.
Yeah. I just the one thing that I fear is like having a real life Jurassic Park in the next 10 years.
Well, they're telling us that they're gonna be doing a mammoth, a woolly mammoth, and
Right.
it's slated to be born on in 2028. So I mean, it is scary. We're well on our way, and you think, what are the boundaries here? What are we really thinking this through all the way?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I mean like, are we my lights are like playing little games here, so I gotta turn my lights back on. Um, yeah, like who are we as a species to bring back things that were extinct? Some skeptics or some people would say, maybe we're not supposed to be bringing these things back. Maybe they were extinct for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely when you start playing God and interfering, you wonder what the unintended consequences are going to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I know it's for the good of research and science, but you can keep it at that, but not like bring things back to life. When I see T-Rex coming running down my block, I'm gonna be running.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I think Utah's excited because our NHL hockey team just announced yesterday
Yeah,
that they're going to be called the Mammoth. So I'm looking at this thinking, well, maybe we can have a live mascot here in a couple years.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, no, I'm actually happy for that name for that team. That's actually a really cool name. I'm glad they picked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a hockey fan myself. I'm in New York, so I'm a Rangers fan. So sorry.
Hey, that's all right. I grew up. That's actually hockey's a passion of mine, and I played ice hockey in high school,
Nice.
and yeah, big
Yeah.
hockey.
We had a terrible season this year. I don't know what happened, but we had to press the restart button for next season, so we had to restart everything. Yeah. So, but that's how it goes in sports, right? So,
Yep.
we're getting down to the end. I can't believe it's 9:48. So guys, again, I apologize for the screen on the podcast. I tried wholeheartedly, very hard to get it to full screen. I'm going to edit and make sure I'm gonna my promise I'm gonna make this video really sweet and put it up there on my YouTube channel and Rumble and it's gonna look really good like as if none of that ever happened. Like believe me, I'm gonna try my best. um anyways, but I'm having fun. Thomas, what um what can you surprise us with? Like, what are some things we can maybe get a glimpse of, like a little tease or a sneak peek? What are some things you can maybe share with us of what to expect on season 6?
Boy, they just dropped the first trailer like a day or two ago, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
watched it, and I'm like, they didn't give anything away in that trailer. That's
Oh, wow.
I wonder if they're going to drop some more between now and June 3rd when we air. Um, like season 5 was so action packed. You look at Droneageddon with all the drones falling out, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
we had so many things happen in season 5 that it was like nonstop. It was an embarrassment of riches almost. And season 6 has its own personality. I'll say that, it's got its own personality. If you'd ask me, I'd say, um, while there were crazy, exciting things that happened, to me, the takeaways for season 6 is more about the discovery and not quite the emphasis on the excitement side. So I'd say it was less action packed, but more substantial in the finds, and I cannot wait
Mm,
uh, for which I think a lot of our audience is going to appreciate the fact that look, we all love being entertained and the action and stuff. That's great, but I think that a lot of our audience that's been following along with us for all 6 seasons now really is looking for some answers.
yeah,
What's going on in the triangle? What's going on? What is lying inside the mesa? That's probably the biggest mystery that I see that people are like, what's inside that mesa? And so I think that those individuals that are looking for solid, concrete, substantive answers, I think they're going to be happy with some of the things that we show
nice.
in season
Nice.
6.
Like, what are you personally kind of hoping for yourself? Are you like, what are the theories that you're rooting for it to be like what's behind the Mesa? Like, what's in there? Like, what's your hopes like to find? Like,
Oh. if you're asking what I think it is versus what I hope it is, I
Yeah.
mean, I hope it's a freaking UFO that's buried in there, right? Like I'd hope if you're asking me what I hope for, I'd hope for the most exotic, amazing discovery that this planet has ever seen. Uh,
Right.
that's what I would hope for. Um, I probably, if you ask me what I actually think it is, I probably would scale it back from that. But I'm hoping for the full scale UFO with the alien bodies inside. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many wild theories. Like, they've had theories of like, it being like some kind of fortress, behind there, some kind of base, with stuff in there, and like, yeah. But like, if you guys did find that, well, like, first of all, I think the network would be like, all right, we're cutting it right here. We don't know what to do from this point,
No,
right?
but you know what the network's going to do. The network, I know what the network will do. We find that they're going to be like, okay, they're going to edit it and show all the everything else, and then the last 2 minutes of the season finale, they're going to show us like the shovel hitting something, right? And then it's going to cut away, and they're going to make you wait till the following season to see it. Probably that's if I had if I was going
Yeah,
to say that, that's what I would say. But
right,
um, but Brandon is about full transparency.
right,
He is for full disclosure. So, when that day comes that we make that amazing discovery, um, we're gonna make sure that it gets out there. And
right.
you know, in a lot of cases, these discoveries, we're all sitting on pins and needles. I've been sitting on this now. You got to realize we air on June 3rd,
Yeah.
things that we filmed clear back last summer, and I've had to sit here for almost a full year
No.
knowing what's about to be revealed, and I can't wait to
Yeah.
finally be able to talk openly about it and share it
Right.
with people. So there's a little bit of lag with the network involved. Obviously, we got to wait for it to be edited and appear on television. So there's a few months there delay, but
Right.
when you put that in context, that most science investigations, the a lot of the well, even the images that they're releasing from like the Hubble telescope or the Webb telescope,
Yeah.
some of those images they've been sitting on for 2 years. They study them, they research them for 2 years before they release them to the public. One
Right.
thing about our investigation is that you're seeing it real time. I mean, sometimes you see us hooping and hollering and giving high fives. You're seeing the pure emotion in the moment. You know, Obviously that emotion comes down, you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, and then the work begins. You have to start digging down and doing the tedious, monotonous, uh, heavy lifting of saying, was it really what we thought on first glance, or was it something of a more mundane, prosaic
Right.
explanation. And
Yeah.
to be honest with you, some of those discoveries stand as being truly unexplainable. Still can't explain the telescopes today, can't
Right.
explain a lot of the stuff seen, but some of them we do after the fact find out, oh, that UAP that we thought was actually Flight 1478, United 1478. Um, and so we do the due diligence, and so a lot of times we're able to dig down and say, oh, that glitch in that equipment was because of this or because of that. And so if we had the luxury of time like any other investigative research, we would weed through that. You wouldn't get to see the high fives and the joy and the true raw emotion, which I think is really part of the journey, right? And it's a vulnerable state to be in because we can be really ecstatic about something and really, we find out that it's maybe something more prosaic, and now we're like, oh, great, and that's out there, you know. Luckily, we've been fortunate in the fact that the things that have truly been anomalous have been, the things that have been broadcast, and so there's not too many of those things. It's like, oh, okay, but but that's all part of science, and people are seeing this real time. like 9 months later. So,
I know.
we find something, you're gonna hear about it.
Nice. I one of these days, that Skinwalker Ranch is on my bucket list, and I can't wait to come out there and visit.
Yeah, well, if you decide after seeing everything that you still want to come, you're a braver soul than I. Because had I known what I was walking into, I probably would have gave it a much more serious thought about whether I
Nice.
wanted to go there or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, you're talking to a paranormal guy, so there's a lot of weird things I've come across in my lifetime so far, and I've been doing this a long time. So I don't know. Then again, things always throw me for a loop, and again, the paranormal is completely unexpected. You can't expect it, you know?
Really, yeah.
Yeah. So, before we wrap it up here, Thomas, want to leave time for you to plug anything, websites, information, any events coming up you want to share with the fans, the audience. What are some things you guys are doing that are coming up that you would like to share to everybody?
Yeah, so you can always stay current with us by going to our website, skinwalker-ranch.com. That's the best place to find information on current happenings. You become an insider, and then we do a lot of private Q&As with our insiders. That's where they can ask us questions, and it's a live, interactive experience. Um, we're slated to show. We'll be at Phenomicon this year in
Nice.
Vernal. Uh, Something I'm very proud of. We get to bring people into the Uinta Basin. I get to show them my hometown, my home area. I love Phenomenon and being able to showcase the Uinta Basin, let people experience truly how unique of a place it is. And then something we're super excited about here in the next couple weeks, we'll be dropping. We haven't dropped it yet. Matter of fact, I don't even know what the website is. We'll be, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't even know what it is here. Well, I thought maybe I might have it written down, but I don't. Um, we are doing a Skinwalker Ranch cruise.
Nice.
Yep, we're going to be sailing into the Bermuda Triangle. It's a 7-day cruise. Launches in January. I think it's like January 4th. And we're gonna have the largest assembly of team members and some of our subject matter experts um, that are going to be with us on that. And I'm telling you, we're going to have 7 days of a ton of fun. We're going to be doing St. Martin, St. Thomas, and Nassau, Bahamas, sailing
Nice.
right through the Bermuda Triangle, and of course, sharing a lot of information with the people that are going to be on the cruise with us. And so I'd say, watch for that. We'll be doing a lot of social media stuff. If you follow me on social media, Thomas Winterton, make sure there's. I tell you right now, I would love to get some of these scam artists on Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh
The
man.
people on social media, please, my social media accounts, Brandon's social media accounts. We're never going to ask people for money. We're not out. We're not asking people to be our friends. So all these fake imposters that are setting up fake accounts in our name, I have I pay. I hate paying social media, but I do it for my fans in the fact that I want them to be able to know for certainty that they're on my social media site. And we have so
Right.
many fans that are getting scammed by these stupid people that I'd love to just
Oh,
get a
I just
loan on the ranch.
there. Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, I do a lot of paranormal things to them to serve them right for stealing from people. But go to my social media, Thomas Winterton. Look for the blue check mark. I have the verified account. Please do not get scammed by the imposters. There's a million of them out there. But you can watch. We'll be dropping links for that. It's like Skinwalker Uncharted. Uh, I wish I had that information. I wasn't actually prepared to plug that, but it came up
Oh,
in my mind. So,
yeah.
we're hoping that we can have a great group of people join us on that cruise. We're going to have we've got some great people that are a lot of subject matter experts that you see on television with us, Pete Kelsey, and
Nice.
some of these guys that are helping us so much are going to be there. So we're going to have a ton of fun.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. I'm due for another cruise, so maybe I'll even come aboard.
Come with us, man. It's gonna be a week-long party of paranormal.
Nice. That sounds like a freaking great time. So, we're gonna end the show here. Thomas, it was great having you. You know, you've been awesome. I hope I've been a great interviewer, and I hope I've been respectful and professional, and despite the technical glitches we had. But again, no worries. I'm gonna make it the best I can. I'm gonna give you the nice, full edited, good version.
Well, I had a blast. So thank you inviting me. It was fun visiting with you, and when you get the bugs all worked out and get down the road, we'll do it again.
All right, that sounds great. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your patience, and I wish you guys luck with the premiere of season 6 of Skinwalker, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Guys, I hope whoever watched tonight that you enjoy Thomas. I know I did. I try not to act like a fan too much. I tried to be an interviewer more than anything, but but
Regular
I'm
guy.
yeah, that's it. Just two guys in a bar, just shooting the breeze, right?
Yep.
Um, it's tough, like being an interviewer and a fan at the same time. It's hard to separate the two. So, but anyways, Thomas, it was great. Enjoy your endeavors. It's coming up, and I wish you guys a lot of luck with the events and the cruise, and your wife's endeavors. I hope she, yeah. Please be in touch. I'd love to have her on. I'll try to help promote whatever I can.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thomas, take care. We'll be in touch.
Take care.
All right, take care. Bye bye.